In the final chaotic days of the Second World War, as the Third Reich collapsed, a single train left the station of Wrocław under the cover of darkness. It carried no soldiers, no refugees. Its cargo was gold, tons of it. Gold bars, silver, priceless jewels, and art looted from across occupied Europe. In those final weeks, Nazi officials were desperate to hide what they had stolen. Rumors spread quickly among the townspeople. They saw convoys of trucks unloading heavy wooden crates. They saw armed SS guards sealing wagons. Then as night fell, the train departed toward the Owl Mountains in Lower Silesia. It was never seen again. What followed became one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. Eyewitnesses spoke of explosions in the tunnels, of sealed entrances, of a train entombed in the earth itself. Local miners whispered that they could still hear faint echoes deep underground, the metallic sound of wheels grinding in eternal darkness. The legend of the Nazi gold train was born. After the war, Soviet troops occupied the region. They investigated the tunnels, confiscated documents, and sent them to Moscow. Some reports mentioned a secret train loaded with treasure. Others were deliberately destroyed. The official response was silence, yet the whispers never stopped. By the 1960s, treasure hunters from across Europe began arriving in the forests around Wałbrzych. They brought old maps, metal detectors, and dreams of gold. Many vanished into the mountains. Others returned empty-handed, convinced that the train was still there, buried somewhere beneath their feet. To understand the legend, one must go back to the Nazi project known as Reese, the Giant. It was a vast network of underground tunnels built into the granite heart of the Owl Mountains. Thousands of forced laborers from concentration camps died digging the labyrinth. No one knew its full purpose. Some believed it was intended as a secret headquarters for Hitler. Others thought it was part of an experimental weapons program. But as the war neared its end, construction stopped. Many entrances were blown up. The tunnels of Rees were never fully explored. Even today, large sections remain sealed. The perfect place, some say, to hide a train loaded with stolen gold. In 2015, the legend erupted back to the headlines. Two Polish explorers announced that they had found the gold train using ground-penetrating radar. They claimed to have detected a massive metal object, 100 meters long, buried near Wałbrzych. The story spread across the world. Excavation teams, military engineers, and journalists rushed to the site. Weeks of digging followed. Cameras captured every move. The world watched, waiting for the first glint of Nazi treasure to emerge from the earth. But when the last shovel struck rock, there was nothing. No train, no gold, only silence and disappointment. Officials declared the legend a myth. Scientists said the radar readings were misinterpreted, but not everyone was convinced. Old maps showed railway lines that ended abruptly near the excavation site. Witnesses recalled their fathers and grandfathers speaking of explosions in 1945. There were too many coincidences, too many erased records. Theories began to multiply. Some historians believe the treasure was moved before the Soviet advance and hidden in Austria or Switzerland. Others claim it was found by Soviet forces who kept it secret to avoid sharing it with the Allies. A few go even further, suggesting that the train carried not gold but classified technology, weapons, or even stolen art from the Reich's most secret collections. Beneath the forest, the tunnels remain. Damp air drips from concrete walls. Rusted rails disappear into darkness. Those who venture down there describe an eerie silence broken only by their own footsteps. Every shadow feels alive. Every echo could be the sound of the train that once thundered through these halls. In modern times, technology has advanced, but the mystery persists. Drones, thermal scanners, and digital maps have all been used to probe the mountains. Each expedition adds new details, new coordinates, new theories. Yet the truth stays hidden as if the earth itself refuses to give it up. For some, the treasure has become an obsession. They spend their lives studying maps, archives, and legends, chasing a ghost that may never have existed. Others see the story as a reflection of human greed, a reminder that even in ruin, men will dig for gold before they dig for truth. The Nazi gold train has never been found. Perhaps it never existed. Or perhaps it lies buried somewhere beneath the soil of Lower Silesia, sealed forever behind walls of stone and secrecy.
Nazi gold train found?
But one thing is certain: the legend endures. It moves through time like the echo of an engine fading in the distance. Some treasures are meant to be discovered. Others are meant to stay hidden. And somewhere, deep under the mountains of Poland, a ghost still waits for its final station. Deep in the mountains of Lower Silesia lies a secret that began long before the war was over. Hidden beneath the forests and stone ridges is a labyrinth carved by human hands, a network so vast that even today no one knows its full reach. The Nazis called it Reese, the Giant. In the winter of 1943, as the tide of war turned against Germany, construction began. Thousands of prisoners from concentration camps were brought to the Owl Mountains. They were forced to dig day and night, carving tunnels through solid granite, building underground halls, ventilation shafts, rail lines, and storage chambers. The work was brutal. Many died in darkness, their names never recorded. The official explanation was simple. These tunnels would serve as military factories, perhaps a new headquarters for Hitler, or a final refuge if Berlin fell. But among the soldiers who guarded the site, whispers spread of something else: secret trains, hidden convoys, treasures moved under cover of night. When the Red Army advanced in 1945, the entrances were sealed with dynamite. The blueprints vanished, and the mountains swallowed the truth. After the war, Soviet engineers arrived to inspect what remained of the German complex. They found kilometers of tunnels, some flooded, others still echoing with the smell of fuel and dust. Crates marked with the Nazi eagle were discovered, but their contents were taken away. Official reports spoke vaguely of materials of economic value. The rest was classified. In the years that followed, Polish miners exploring the region began to hear rumors of a train buried somewhere beneath their feet. They told stories of vibrations felt deep underground, of blocked corridors leading nowhere, of guards who once swore to protect a secret shipment that never reached its destination. The archives kept in Warsaw contained fragments, transport manifests with missing pages, photographs of half-built rail lines abruptly ending in forest. Every clue seemed to point toward the same conclusion. Something enormous had been hidden in the mountains, and someone had made sure it would never be found. By the 1970s, local explorers started mapping the entrances of Reese. They discovered vast caverns, concrete tunnels wide enough for locomotives, but no official record described what they were meant for. Historians debated whether these chambers were designed to hold machines of war or to conceal the wealth of a dying empire. Somewhere within these mountains, the legend of the gold train intertwined with the story of Reese. The theory was simple but irresistible. The Nazis had used the unfinished complex as the perfect hiding place. They could move a full-length armored train into the tunnel, seal the entrance, and leave no trace. When the Reich fell, the knowledge died with those who ordered it. In the decades that followed, small discoveries reignited the hunt. Miners uncovered rusted rails far below the surface. Archaeologists found fragments of German machinery buried in collapsed shafts. One even claimed to have located a concrete wall that rang hollow when struck, as if something massive waited behind it. The Polish government opened limited investigations, but the terrain was treacherous. Flooded tunnels, unstable rock, unexploded ordnance. Each attempt ended before reaching any conclusion. Still, the idea refused to die. Old maps from the Wehrmacht archives were compared with the modern satellite images. Lines that once indicated secret supply routes appeared to vanish into the forest near the town of Leipzig, the same area where witnesses long ago claimed the train disappeared. For many, the evidence was enough. The gold train was not a myth. It was buried somewhere beneath the ruins of Reese. In the early years of the 21st century, Amateur researchers began using ground-penetrating radar. They scanned the slopes, the abandoned shafts, the forgotten railway beds swallowed by moss and roots. Metallic echoes appeared on their instruments, signals that hinted at massive shapes hidden below. Each discovery brought new excitement, new headlines, new promises that the mystery was about to be solved. But the mountain remained silent. It guarded its secrets, unbroken by time. And as the world watched, the legend deepened. A story of gold, of war, and of the darkness humanity leaves behind when it tries to hide its sins. The tunnels of Lower Silesia still breathe beneath the soil. The air inside them is cold and still. Somewhere beyond those sealed walls, perhaps, lies the final chapter of the gold train, waiting for the day when the earth itself decides to reveal what it has kept for 80 years. By the beginning of the 21st century, the legend of the Nazi gold train had grown into one of Europe's greatest unsolved mysteries. Generations had come and gone, but the story remained the same. Somewhere beneath the mountains of Lower Silesia, a train loaded with treasure was buried and forgotten. For decades, it was dismissed as folklore. Then, in 2015, the impossible happened. The legend suddenly came alive. Two Polish men, amateur historians named Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter, claimed they had found the exact location of the gold train. Using ground-penetrating radar, they announced that they had detected a massive metal structure buried 100 meters below a railway embankment near the town of Wałbrzych. The readings showed long, straight lines, sharp corners, and a shape the size of a train. It was, they said, unmistakable. Their announcement spread like wildfire. Within days, news agencies across the world picked up the story. Headlines promised that one of history's greatest treasures was about to be unearthed. Some estimated its value at billions of dollars. Hotels in Wałbrzych filled with reporters, treasure hunters, and scientists. The Polish military sealed off the area, while government officials debated who would own the gold if the legend turned out to be true. For a few short weeks, the eyes of the world were fixed on a quiet hillside in southwestern Poland. Television crews broadcast live as excavation equipment arrived. It felt like history itself was about to open its gates. The atmosphere was a strange mixture of excitement and disbelief. People came with shovels, flags, and cameras, hoping to witness the moment when the mountain would finally surrender its secret. Then the digging began. At first, there were encouraging signs: irregular soil layers, traces of concrete, and strange metallic readings. But as the work continued, the hope began to fade. No tracks were found. No tunnel entrances appeared. After weeks of effort, the excavation was called off. The hill stood as silent as ever. Officials declared that there was nothing there. The disappointment was enormous. Critics accused the explorers of fabricating evidence to attract attention. Scientists said the radar data had been misread. What seemed like metal lines were only geological formations. The Polish government distanced itself from the story. But even in failure, the legend refused to die. Koper and Richter insisted they had seen the data with their own eyes. They believed something was buried there, perhaps deeper than the excavation had gone. Many locals agreed. They remembered old tunnels from before the war, now sealed or forgotten, and spoke of hidden shafts that even official maps never recorded. The echoes of rumor were stronger than the silence of science. Soon, new theories began to appear. Some claimed the train had been moved elsewhere before the Soviets arrived, hidden in another tunnel of the Reese complex. Others suggested it was destroyed to prevent capture, its remains scattered under tons of rock. A few even argued that the gold train was a code name, a symbolic reference to another secret, perhaps an archive, or a cache of stolen art from across Europe. Meanwhile, interest in the region exploded. Tourists flooded the mountains. Museums opened exhibitions dedicated to the legend. Local historians uncovered forgotten Nazi documents hinting at secret transports during the last months of the war. Even skeptics admitted that the story contained gaps too large to ignore. The hunt took on a new form. No longer just an adventure, It became an investigation, a mix of archaeology, science, and myth. Teams equipped with drones, 3D scanners, and magnetic sensors mapped every ridge and valley. Digital models revealed underground anomalies, long cavities, empty chambers, and buried structures that no one could explain. Each new image reignited hope. Each failure only deepened the mystery. The Polish government eventually classified the gold train site as an area of historical interest. Private expeditions were restricted, but the fascination endured. Some continued to search in secret, entering abandoned mines at night, filming their progress with flashlights and head-mounted cameras. The internet filled with videos showing narrow tunnels, rusted rails, and markings of the Third Reich carved into concrete walls. Most led nowhere. But every so often, one detail, a symbol, a sound, a forgotten corridor would fuel the fire again. In recent years, scientists have revisited the radar data from 2015 using modern algorithms. The results are inconclusive. Some readings do suggest metallic structures, though not necessarily a train. Others point to natural mineral layers that can produce similar reflections. The line between myth and reality remains thin, blurred by time and human obsession. For those who still search, the gold train has become more than treasure. It is a mirror of history, a reminder of the greed, fear, and chaos that marked the war's final days. They say that every legend hides a fragment of truth, and perhaps beneath the soil of Lower Silesia, that fragment still waits. The forest stands quiet now. Moss covers the remnants of railways. The entrances to Reese lie in shadow, filled with cold air and silence. But those who enter swear they feel something, a presence, a weight, as if the mountain itself remembers. Maybe it does. Maybe it keeps its secret for a reason. The gold train has never been found. Yet, with every generation, the search begins again. For gold, for truth, for the chance to uncover the past that refuses to stay buried. Because in the end, the greatest treasure may not be the gold itself, but the mystery that keeps us digging, listening, and wondering what still lies beneath the earth. Spring of 1945. The Third Reich was crumbling, cities burning, commanders fleeing, and chaos spreading across every corner of occupied Europe. Yet, deep in the mountains of Lower Silesia, a single mission still moved forward in complete secrecy. Somewhere between Wrocław and the town of Wałbrzych, a heavily guarded train was being prepared to depart. It carried no soldiers. It carried the fortune of an empire. Eyewitnesses later recalled that SS officers arrived in the village of Świebodzice days before the Soviet advance. They ordered silence from the locals, seized a section of the railway, and worked through the nights under blackout. Convoys of trucks rolled in, covered with canvas, escorted by armed guards. The villagers saw crates stamped with the Reichsadler emblem, heavy, reinforced, sealed with wax. By the time the last truck left, the air smelled of oil, dust, and fear. The train departed after midnight. Dozens of wagons, an armored locomotive, and a detachment of guards who had sworn an oath of silence. According to the official railway logs, it never existed. No departure, no destination, no record. Yet survivors spoke of the rumble echoing through the valley, of the sound of steel wheels fading into the dark forest. For 2 days, the convoy wound through the mountains. At every station, soldiers cut communication lines and removed railway signals. Somewhere south of Wałbrzych, the train was diverted onto a private industrial track, one of many built during the Rees construction project. It entered a tunnel carved into the side of the mountain and never came out again. The few who knew its destination vanished within weeks. Some fled to Austria. Others were captured by the Soviets. Several officers from the SS Logistics Corps disappeared without a trace. Their families later received letters postmarked from Switzerland, short, unsigned, and final. Historians believe the men responsible for the transport either died during the evacuation or were executed to keep the secret buried forever. When Soviet troops reached Lower Silesia, they found tunnels freshly sealed with concrete. One entrance was still warm from explosives. Inside were collapsed galleries, broken machinery, and traces of wooden planks charred by fire. Engineers reported the smell of fuel, melted metal, and something strange: rail grease without rails. They stopped the excavation, fearing booby traps. The site was closed and placed under military guard. In Moscow, the discovery was classified. A short report mentioned possible German valuables, but offered no detail. Decades later, fragments of that report surfaced in Polish archives, confirming that a sealed tunnel had been located near the 65th kilometer mark of the old Wrocław-Wałbrzych Railway. What lay beyond the collapsed section remained unknown. Over the years, rumors grew around the missing train. Some believed it carried the gold reserves of the Reichsbank, 300 tons of bullion that vanished in 1945. Others claimed it held looted art: the Amber Room of St. Petersburg, the lost masterpieces of Krakow and Dresden, even religious relics stolen from cathedrals. There were darker theories, too, that the cargo included experimental weapons, uranium ore, or documents that could have changed the outcome of the war. But beyond speculation, there was the human side. Prisoners who survived the reconstruction spoke of an order issued in early 1945 to extend one of the tunnels and install rail tracks. They never saw what was brought in, only that the wagons were pushed by hand, one after another, into the mountain. The next morning, guards forced them out and detonated the entrance. The sound shook the valleys for miles. Decades later, explorers who entered the remaining tunnels reported strange details: walls blackened by soot, bent rails disappearing into solid rock, a section of corridor where their compasses stopped working. Some believed it was simply magnetic ore. Others felt something different, a sense of unfinished purpose, as if the mountain itself had frozen a moment in time. In the 1990s, a retired Polish miner revealed that he had once worked on clearing debris from a blocked shaft in the same area. He claimed that behind the rockfall, they struck metal, smooth, curved, and cold. The crew was told to stop immediately. The site was filled again with concrete. No record of that operation exists. Today, the official stance of historians remains cautious. There is no definitive proof that a Nazi gold train was ever buried. Yet there is also no evidence that it was not. Too many documents are missing. Too many witnesses silenced. The few who dared to dig deeper found only empty space and questions that refused to die. Each year, small teams return to the forests of Lower Silesia. They come with new technology, new hope, and the same old dream: to be the ones who finally uncover what lies behind those sealed walls. But the mountain remains silent. The ground gives nothing back. Perhaps the train still rests there, deep within the stone, untouched since that final night of 1945. Perhaps it was destroyed, its gold melted into history. Or perhaps it was never about the treasure at all. Maybe the gold train is simply the last ghost of a collapsing empire, a legend built on fear, greed, and the desperate need to hide the truth from the world. And so, as the decades pass, the tunnel sleeps. Dust settles over rusted rails, and the echo of the last engine fades into silence. What happened in those mountains is still unknown. But one thing is certain. On that night, when the train rolled into darkness, part of the 20th century disappeared with it. More than 80 years have passed since the train vanished. The forests of Lower Silesia have grown thick again, swallowing the scars of war. Villages have changed, roads have shifted, but the legend endures. The gold train has become a part of the land itself, a whisper carried by the wind that moves through the pines and over the abandoned rails. In the modern world, myths rarely survive, but this one did. It evolved, finding new believers with every generation. For some, it is just a curiosity, a local tale told to tourists. For others, it is an obsession. They call themselves explorers, researchers, sometimes historians, yet their work resembles pilgrimage more than science. Equipped with drones, scanners, and underground mapping tools, they return to the same slopes again and again. They record magnetic fields, temperature anomalies, seismic echoes. Every reading, every glitch in the data becomes another sign that something might be there. In recent years, thermal cameras have detected cold spots beneath the soil, perfectly rectangular and deeper than natural cavities should be. No one knows what they are, but hope, once awakened, does not fade easily. The Polish Geological Institute continues to analyze new surveys. Engineers propose new drilling points, safer tunnels, non-invasive radar scans. Each time, funding runs out before the work begins. The legend survives not through proof, but through persistence. It feeds on silence, on the emptiness between facts. Local miners still tell stories passed down by their grandfathers, of nights when the air trembled without thunder, of guards who vanished after the war, of a tunnel that once existed on old maps but is now gone. One man claims his father saw the entrance sealed by soldiers in 1945, a wall of stone raised over a mouth of darkness. He never spoke of it again. Among historians, opinions divide. Some see the legend as a metaphor, the perfect symbol of greed and denial, a story about how empires hide their sins beneath the earth. Others insist it must be based on truth, because myths that survive so long are rarely born from nothing. What cannot be proven often becomes the most powerful kind of history. In 2023, a new expedition proposed using muon tomography, a particle scanning technique used to peer inside pyramids and volcanoes. If approved, it could reveal once and for all whether something lies beneath the mountains. But even the scientists admit that solving the mystery might end its magic. The unknown is what keeps the gold train alive. Without mystery, it would simply become another story of theft and loss. For the people who live near Wałbrzych, the legend brings both pride and unease. It draws visitors, historians, filmmakers, and dreamers. It turns forgotten villages into places of wonder. Yet it also stirs an old fear. The memory of the time when gold, power, and death traveled together on steel rails. The war ended long ago, but its shadow still lies heavy in the tunnels of Reese. At night, the mountains are silent. Mist rises from the valleys. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls, and the sound echoes like a whistle in the dark. It is easy to imagine a faint vibration beneath the ground, the slow rumble of wheels that never stopped. People who walk the forest paths alone swear they hear it sometimes, the rhythm of a ghost train, forever searching for the way out. Perhaps that is what makes the story timeless. It is not only about treasure, but about the things humanity chooses to bury. Gold, yes, but also guilt, memory, and the weight of history itself. We dig for answers, but what we uncover often reflects more of ourselves than of the past. The gold train has become a mirror. It shows us the danger of greed, the persistence of myth, and the thin line between discovery and obsession. Every generation returns to the mountain, convinced they will be the ones to finally break the silence. And every time, the mountain remains still. Maybe that is how it was meant to be. Maybe the secret of the gold train is not hidden in the earth, but in the human need to believe that something extraordinary still waits to be found. In a world that has mapped every ocean and scanned every star, a mystery like this reminds us that not everything must be revealed. Somewhere in those tunnels, the air is colder than it should be. A thin layer of dust covers everything, undisturbed for decades. There is no light, no sound, no movement. Only the quiet memory of a night in 1945 when a train entered the darkness and never returned. Time moves on, but legends do not. They remain where truth and imagination meet. In the shadows between history and myth, the gold train is still there, not as an artifact of war, but as a symbol of the endless search for what lies beyond human reach. And as long as people keep listening, the mountain will keep whispering. A sound like distant thunder, a memory of iron and fire, the echo of gold,